there on my end. It's saying live. Let's see, let me get the chat up. Let me get the questions. All right.
Excellent.
Hey, all right. And welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova Podcast. I'm your host, Mikhail Kasanova, and I've got the honor and privilege of having my good friend, the one, the only, the iconic Mark Whitten on the show. Mark, how is it going? How's your day going?
Hey, it's going very well. Thank you so much for having me back. I really appreciate it. It's good to be here.
It's crazy. Has it been 2 years or has it been a year since you were on the show? It's been a while.
Been a bit. It's been a bit. But here we are.
Right. It's only been was it like a month and a half ago that I last saw you? I'm losing track of time.
No, it was in January. I know. I don't know what day it is right now, but no, it was in January actually. At the end of January when we were out there visiting in Hawaii.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy how like the concept of time right now is just lost on so many of us. Like I'm finding usually I stay up till like maybe 12 o'clock or 1 in the morning working on stuff, but like now I'll be in the office working on stuff, and then next thing I know it's like 7 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh snap, I need to go to sleep.
7 or 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, like I'm just like I get into. Well, you've seen like how I edit stuff. Like I get super into it, and then I'm like,
get in the zone.
I look up and I'm like, oh crap. And then like I start getting emails from other people or companies and stuff, and I'm like, well, if I go to sleep now, I probably won't be able to respond in time to the email. So okay,
right. Right. And are you getting like international emails too? So it's like, you know, there is no time for any of us to sleep.
Yeah.
We should just kind of like take like 2 hours on, 2 hours off, and spread out throughout the day so that we're always awake.
Definitely.
Always available.
This is like when I look at the like most of the companies that I work with, some are in the East Coast. So by 1 o'clock my time in the morning, it's already 7 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. And then if I'm working with people in Australia, they're like a day ahead and a couple hours behind. And then people in the UK are like 10 hours ahead of me. So I'm like, right. I'm just up.
Right. And then flop on that the idea that no one sees the sun anymore.
Yeah.
Or actually, I should say, you know. And you got yourself a problem, man. Well, you look very awake. You're shining and glowing, and it's wonderful to see your face.
Hey, it's because of the spotlights and caffeine. That's what that is.
Okay. There you go. Spotlights and caffeine.
Right. So, man, you've been doing a lot of work lately. I mean, you've been, you know, not only Fire Emblem Three Houses, you're Sethith in that. I mean, you're Leslie Kyle and Final Fantasy VII Remake. You're Kyojuro and Demon Slayer. Like, dude, you have been working. How does it feel?
It feels great. It honestly, it feels wonderful. And yeah, a lot of these crazy high profile projects. I've been working on some more stuff in the interim before all this came, tumbling upon us. That's also big. So I can't wait to get back to work on that. But some cool titles and projects that are yet to come. So it feels great. I don't know. What can I say? I think it's everybody's dream, I think, in the industry, to just be able to be involved with some really cool teams and really cool properties, and especially stuff that like the fans enjoy, and like Final Fantasy, like stuff that really is like just my childhood nostalgia, hitting me right in the heart. And getting to be a part of that project was just crazy. There's just a big smile on my. I had to like tone it down. I'd be like, "You're playing Leslie. Leslie's not very smiley. Wipe that smile off your face, buddy."
No, but it's so crazy because it's like, for a lot of us, like I know for like you and as I was talking to John Bentley this past Monday, like when I interviewed him, like, he was saying the same thing. Like Final Fantasy VII was our childhood, and just being part of it, like how like when you landed the role for Leslie Kyle and you knew you were going to be working on Final Fantasy VII Remake, how did you feel? Like, were you jumping, like bouncing off the
Oh,
walls, or?
oh yeah. Oh, I felt amazing. Also because like in the VO world, auditions come and go, and there are like hundreds of them that come through. And a
Mm,
lot of the time you don't hear about a thing for maybe a couple days, maybe a couple weeks,
mm.
maybe a year, like a freaking year. You don't hear about whether you got it. So a lot of times when you audition for stuff, you're like, and I was excited when I was auditioning, and believe me, there are NDAs swirling around the project, as there
Mhm.
are with most projects, this one especially. And when I saw the auditions coming through, I was like, "Oh my God, I want to be a part of this." Because and even when the companies, some companies do make an effort to disguise what people are auditioning for, because we really want to keep it under lock and key for for the benefit of everyone who's going to enjoy it later.
Mhm.
um, and even as actors, we sometimes aren't privy to what the project is. But I like to pride myself on being a crafty auditioner and gamer, so I can like figure out my projects too. If they decide to like disguise it, I'll definitely look for like thematic similarities and be
Mhm.
like, I'm totally auditioning for this project or this line or this genre, just so I can have a better sense of what I'm going for. So with Final Fantasy, I was aware that we were auditioning for Final Fantasy, and I was so excited. And then it was one of those where there's a little bit of a longer period of time before they let you know. Just
Mhm.
that waiting period. I didn't know whether it was like something that was happening right away, or whether I was going to have to wait. And I kind of got a little bummed out because I was like, "Oh man, I didn't get it." And I was like, just the chance to be a part of this would have been huge.
Mhm.
And then one day it just kind of comes in, and I'm like, wait, what? And I had to go back through my emails and check, what project is that? Is that the project? And I was like, that's the project. So yeah, I mean, I was definitely like glowing, and when I realized that I was going to be a part of it.
Mhm.
An interesting thing about Leslie is Leslie's not a part of the original.
Yeah.
So that was another thing with a character like that, is like I'm like, oh, this is new. This
Mhm.
is uh this is not exactly what I remembered from it, because they're expanding the world. They're adding a
Yeah.
lot of depth to it, which I think is great and awesome. And I love the idea of it being like this, these chunks, because it's huge.
Mhm.
It's an epic game. I remember as a kid, I was trying to explain to my parents. They're like, "Did you play that?" I was like, "Oh yeah, mom and dad, you definitely saw me play this game. I was like in front of that screen for like over 100 hours on this. There's no way you didn't see me playing this." And back in the day, like 100 hours was that was a lot. That was a lot of game,
Yeah.
especially in Final Fantasy. And I was a fan of the series from as early as it went back. I played the original Final Fantasy on Nintendo, not
Mhm.
all the Japanese versions, but the very first one where you're fighting like chaos at the end, and you
Mhm.
have like you have the cool, I don't know. It was just, I remember we had like a guidebook for it, and it was the original
Yeah.
NES game. And actually, um, man, I love that series so much. I got so stoked when 9 came out, and you
Mhm.
saw Vivi, and Vivi looks like the traditional black mage from
Yeah.
the first one, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's so cool." So, yeah, do I geek out about Final Fantasy? A little bit sometimes.
And it's just crazy to think like how the franchise has come so far from when it debuted in the 80s to when it was like, Final Fantasy VII brought it into the mainstream, and then
Hmm.
how it's evolved to where it is now. Like I know there are some people that are saying like, "Oh, I'll wait till the entire story's out for the remake," and I'm like telling people, you don't understand. There's so much in this remake. There's so much story that's being expounded upon. It's
Hmm.
You don't want to miss it. And one of the things for me in playing it, like I was telling like Hua, and I was telling a lot of my community that's watching now, that the thing that I really loved about was done with this remake was given, fleshing out characters that before were like, hi, bye, they're gone, like Jesse and Biz and Wedge. Like that was probably you were with them for 2 or 3 hours in the original, whereas now it's like
now you're with them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I just realized that there are like live comments going on over here, and I now I'm like kind of popping on. Someone had asked, "What's your first or favorite Final Fantasy game?" And I would say that probably my fave was 7, and my first was the first one. Although there was Final Fantasy Legends, I had a really soft spot for that in my heart, and that was on the Game Boy when it came out. And that game, I don't know why, for whatever reason, sometimes you just latch onto things when you're young. And for whatever reason, I just latched onto that a lot. And I really dug like the Final Fantasy Legends ones. And it was kind of one of those things where I was like, I really wanted to get the rest of the Game Boy games, but I think that also my parents were like, you are playing a lot of video games. You shouldn't do that. I'm like, just you wait. Just you wait, I'll be out voicing them someday.
Right. See, Desiree had a question for you, or Denomi, she had a question, is what are your thoughts on the remake as a whole? I guess from the perspective of a gamer.
Now to tell you the truth, and don't get super mad at me because I haven't had a lot of time to get into this, but I need to block out some time to start actually playing the remake in its entirety. So I reserve. Tell you what, let's schedule another one of these, and let's jump on, and we will talk nuts and bolts of the game. When I found a little bit of time, because as I was just telling you before we got on, like it's been super busy, and I haven't had like a ton of time to really start investing in things. I'm trying to like kind of keep up with a lot of the work that hasn't really slowed down. But from what I was seeing, because I've been watching some of the videos online and obviously being a part of it, seeing from the inside out, I don't know. It's always, I had this vision in my mind, I think, of how everything looked when I was a kid from the original animations. And that vision that I had in my head, and granted, when it came out, it was that revolutionary. It was the blocky polygons, but still, it looked really cool for being like the game that it was. And then when you went into the battles and the cutscenes in the original, you were like, oh my God, it looks like this. And I was like, I wonder if they'll ever make a game where it actually looks like that. and they did. They just did. And I was like, I think that like 15-year-old me would be losing it right now to know that, just because there's so much more beauty and detail and depth to the actual artistic layers that they've put over it, that I really wanted to see and did see a bit about, but it was all in my head. It was all my imagination back when I was playing it through the first time. So it looks like, the world looks beautiful and rich and gritty. And those like the first cutscene where it kind of sweeps down over the train from the original and whatnot. You see this dirty, almost cyberpunky looking city that you want to run through, and it just has that rich feel to it. And I love the artwork and I love the updates to it. Did anyone else ever watch the Final Fantasy movie that came out? The full
Spirits Within? The one early 2000, right? The one that went to theaters?
Yeah, the one that went to theaters.
Yeah, I remember.
It's like that sort of like I really love like video game cutscenes, and I love that the CGI graphics that like Square Enix and especially Blizzard does, and I've always wanted to see more of that. And now that that's like kind of the norm for what our systems can handle now, I just I don't know. I'm in love. It's like walking through a beautiful art piece. So,
like, isn't it crazy? Like, you think back to it, like how games have evolved from like pixels that we saw on the screen to like now they're fully fleshed out 3D, models with blemishes and inflections on the skin, and it's crazy to think that we used to think that the cut scenes on like the original Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII were like super realistic, and it's like we're like it's never gonna look this good. And now it's like you look at like I remember when I got my review code from Square and I'm playing it and I'm like, my God, this game looks great. It is
Yeah.
crazy that this is running on modern hardware. It's so crazy.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, I mean, that's just just as a fan of like diving into to that world more and getting to play around in like a deeper and richer space. And I love the storyline of it too. I really loved so I'm looking forward to like revisiting it and being with those characters.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. and
tally ho.
for the audience that's watching or those who may be listening, for you guys to understand, like a lot of the voice actors, their time is so limited. They're typically in the booth like every single day, either auditioning or recording. It can be anywhere from 15 or so, or correct me if I'm wrong, 15 or so hour day of just working, recording.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There are a lot of auditions out there, and a lot of our work does not get heard as a lot of actors. We spend a lot of time just in the old booth. That's my booth back there. That's was just living in there this morning until I popped out for an interview. But yeah, you spend a lot of time and bouncing from character to character to character, and every sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of fun, but it is a lot of I need to kind of like come out and be out on like a patio or go for a walk to kind of like get out in the open space. But yeah, there's a bunch of work to get done.
So I saw that Nero Altus in the chat. He said he was complimenting you on your vocal range and your ability as an actor.
It.
And he said he loves Kyojiro from Demon Slayer. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is like with each character, because every character you do sounds dramatically different. Whether you're
Thanks,
Alex, the New Yorker, or you're your Setith, or your Leslie Kyle, or like you're able to go on a spectrum with your voice. Like, how do you do it? Like, is it stressful for you, or?
It's not stressful. It's always a challenge because going into I think in any actor will probably tell you that maintaining that character and maintaining the truth of that character, especially and sometimes you have more material and more time to tune yourself to that than others. So one thing that you learn being a voice actor is you got to kind of be quick. You got to make some quick, bold decisions, and you got to stick to them. I tend to look a lot within myself, like physically, to hold physical postures to find out what sort of physicality that character inhabits, which I find helps a lot in leading to the voice of that character. The voice can be a technical thing, but it's also very much like character driven. I've been acting since I was a kid, and a lot of it was like theater acting. So mostly I've always been tuned into trying to be kind of a chameleon on stage, or that's my goal, and I hope that I accomplish it. And I try every single day with every single part that I am to really. I try to change myself to be not necessarily myself. We always bring a bit of ourselves with us as actors, but I really try to, inhabit that different character there. I might be getting a bit off of the rails with this, so if you want to direct me right back, I can talk a lot.
No, dude. I enjoy it. It's all about the organic conversation, man. Wherever you're going, I can go with you.
Yeah. With animation, it is there's a lot more possibility in certain projects to really just kind of alter yourself. And with that being said, you always want to avoid it just being like a funny voice that I do. As opposed to something that's actually a character that you're doing. The voice should be more than just that, more than just like, oh, he's a Southerner, so it's a Southern voice. But it's like, yeah, but who is he? What kind of person is he? What does he want? What does he want in this situation? What are his relationships? What's his status in life? What's the situation that they're in currently, and what do they feel about it? A lot of like acting questions that you get from just, studying film, theater, all the acting sort of greats. And yes, I'm saying that it's an underappreciated art. Thank you for saying that. I think it is too. Because a lot of that we're all having to convey without having the visual on us too. And it's it can be tough because you don't want to neglect the physicality that's there. And that's a strong part of it. But you also have to understand no one's going to see your physicality. Yeah. But if that can help bring a certain amount of tactile authenticity to the voice and to the part and to the situations that you're in. I try to do that with every project and asking questions too. I always love collaborating with the teams that I'm working with. So asking questions about the story, about the tone, about the situations. Because a lot of this with voiceover, with a lot of these jobs, the industry moves very fast. And when you get on a job, you hit the ground running. And that was something that became very apparent to me when I started working on Home, Adventures with Tip and O on DreamWorks. I was like the lead part in this animated series with like major players, and it was crazy and thrilling. But it's not like we didn't like sit around and have like a chat and rehearsals. It was like we were there to record an episode. And you're there to do the job. And so all of the things leading up into that moment when you start recording that job, that's your training, that's your prep. And when you get into that booth, you hit the ground running. And so, you've got to be ready to step up to the plate and start getting it done. Yeah. Okay. Anyways. Hi, Chad.
Nero Altus wants to ask, like, what's your most demanding and satisfying role that you've ever done?
I really, going back to Home, Adventures with Tip and O, that is a show that I don't know. It was a DreamWorks show that was aimed at probably a younger audience, probably probably preteen, if not younger than that, from the movie Home. And that character was who is Jim Parsons, actually, from The Big Bang Theory, who voiced him in the movie. And I was lucky enough to be his voice match for the series. It was definitely a challenging thing because there were big shoes to fill, with his interpretation of the character. B, having to convincingly sound like him, but also having to carve out and make it my own for the property that we were doing. And he is just a very, very high energy character. And he had this very sort of like high pitched placement. And I think over the course of the 2 to 3 years that I was doing that show, my vocal range like ticked up a couple notes. So I'm usually like a baritone right now, and as a singer. And I'm pretty sure that throughout that show, I like moved up to being a tenor for a while, and then it kind of came back down. And as I've been doing more video games, and creature stuff, or any sort of like shouting and yelling and or creature noises efforts, you start to hash your voice up a little bit, and that's also challenging in its own way. And that's kind of brought me into a little bit of a lower, rougher range at times. So it's funny. It's fun to see what kind of journey your voice can take, and to see like, I'm curious. I'm like, what can I do? What new sounds is it going to make this time?
Ooh. Fangirl 98 wants to ask, is there any character or characters that you would love to play?
Oh, there's so many. There's so freaking many out there. For anyone who like knows musical theater, I grew up doing a lot of theater and musical theater. And if you know the show Sweeney Todd, I would love to play Sweeney Todd. And I know that I'm not necessarily like a big, burly, imposing figure.
This is a lie. Yes, you are.
Get out. I would love to play that part. I think that it would be fun and fascinating, and I love the journey that character goes through, and how kind of like tortured and set upon he is, and how like maddening this entire situation is, how much he's driving at this vengeful moment.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah. I saw a couple other questions popping up back here. I out of all the characters, who am I most like? I've been thinking about this, and I don't really know. There are definitely aspects of me. Part of me wants to say that it would probably be Sedith, just because I grew up like being part of the theater with a capital T. Yeah, hey, that's the print. Beautiful print done by Hellion White on Twitter. She does beautiful fan art and commissions. But Sedith, I love how kind of like proper in a way he is. I definitely, that was an easy thing for me to pitch into. I love history, and I love I love just kind of I love learning about new things. I think that Sedith is a very curious, a little bit type A. So he's a bit stricter than me. So I don't think that I would be. I don't think I'm that much of a dick. I think I'm a little bit more more regular. So I got a soft side. But yeah, possibly. And then someone else. Sorry, I'm looking down the chat. Someone asked, I voiced a character in Transformers. I did. I voiced Sideswipe and Skywarp in Transformers, and that was super fun. I was glad to be an Autobot and a Decepticon. That was super cool. Yeah. So
cool.
Lots of good stuff.
So let's see. Well, Shaq, go ahead and get your questions in. That way we can.
Oh, now there was Johnny Depp. Yeah, Johnny Depp, not a traditional ask for Sweeney. Yeah. Maybe they're rebooting everything.
So Kennedy Ramirez asks, how is it working with the other Final Fantasy VII voice actors?
I mean, to tell you the truth about how VO works, a lot of it is recorded single session. So they don't always record us with other actors. And that's just kind of a virtue of the fact that there's like, you can't, it's scheduling concerns. It's a lot of the technical bits of being able to pick up people in the same place at the same time. And they want to, streamline the process a little bit. So they recorded us, or at least me, single session. And that's not the norm on all shows. Shows vary. I'm not sure if they may have recorded some of the mains together at the same time. And they'll occasionally do that with people on our show Home. We would record in group records, but we were doing one episode at a time. So you had like a chunk, and we were all scheduled, and obviously some people couldn't make it, and they would record them single session as well. So that basically means that it's me there with the voice director. They're feeding the lines, and we're reading back and forth, or sometimes you're just taking single cues. So it really depends project to project. I did see them in the halls though, and they were all very lovely, and a lot of them are good friends of mine that I didn't know they were in the game until after the fact, because and they're all very, very great and talented folks. That's I wish that we could do ensemble records. A place where that actually does happen, and it's something I really like and I'm starting to get into, is in PCAP, performance capture. And games like the Uncharted series, like The Last of Us, God of War has a lot of PCAP, a lot of the PlayStation things, and that's awesome, because you're just it is like doing black box theater. You're there in the volume with the other actors, and you're recording it in the moment. So that's where you really get to work in a very very close and intimate way with your companions there. So yeah.
Ooh, we have a very active chat today.
I'm kind of popping down to see what's up. Meat pies are delicious. Actually, I don't know. I've never really had that many meat pies. Pasties, is that what they call them over in England? It's been a while since I've been to London.
I think so.
Technical question about VA, but what are voice flaps? I was watching some VA panels. Flaps. So that's generally what we talk about in dubbing, and it's the amount of times the mouth opens. When you're talking about matching the flaps, that is like lip flaps, and I don't know why they call it flaps. Just that the mouth is like flapping, something like that. So that's probably what they're referencing. And when they have a certain amount of flaps, that's I'm also a puppeteer, so but a certain amount of flaps, you can see that you're trying to match the voice to the lip flaps, and it's probably we got a delay going on here, so I'm not syncing very well, but that's the idea. You would just see something, and then I have to thread my line to how many times that mouth opens. Yeah, so that's flaps. Let's see. Hilarious stories from the booth. Just jump into a booth with Nolan North. If you know Nolan North, he's from Drake's Force, from Uncharted, and he's Nathan Drake. He's in Assassin's Creed. He's in freaking everything. He's just a funny guy. There are always times when people are just trying to make each other laugh. There's a voice I did on Home, Adventures with Tip and O, and my God, it's this creepy little weird voice. His name is Garfeld, and he's this little creepy weird dude. And Rachel, my co-star, she freaking hated this guy so much, and the writers on the show would they started writing him into more and more episodes, and they're like, Rachel, it's your favorite person, or they wouldn't tell her, and then Garfeld would appear and he'd be like, I am being so excited to voice with you, Rachel. And he just had this weird little he was just this weird. They're all boobs, so he's like this strange alien. But God, it was freaking hilarious just to because we'd purposefully be trying to crack people up in the booth at those times. I don't know. I think I just find recording to be very fun because everyone's we're just making silly voices a lot of the times, and you want to be in that zone. You want to be really playful, and so people are always trying to make each other laugh. Unless you're on a super serious show, but even then, I don't know. Yeah. Even when once you get past someone, Kari Walgren just posted something on Twitter. If anyone follows her, great voice actress, about she was like, man, I really miss choking on my own blood, and she did this thing, and I've had to do this recently as well. You take a sip of water and you do a death take, but you have the water kind of you're gurgling, and. Yeah. And after you do one of those takes, you get in the zone and you're dying and you're kind of choking on your own blood and your water's drooling down yourself. But you're just kind of watching someone in the booth as they're drooling down themselves and getting those crazy sounds. And then afterwards, you're just like, what did I just do? Because that's work. So
let's see. Hope Face,
it's crazy.
Says, how was meeting the Fire Emblem Three Houses cast at Anime Impulse?
Oh, it's great. And actually we hang out. I see some of those cats a lot more, passing them by in sessions and whatnot. And we've had some moments when we've gotten together and gone bowling or gone out to dinner, just kind of hanging out. I think they did a karaoke night, which I unfortunately missed. They're all lovely, friendly, super talented, really nice people. And just, you know, being able to hang out at Anime Impulse was just another brilliant excuse to chill with friends. And I just think that they're all lovely. If you haven't taken some time to get to know them too, in their other shows, I'm sure if there are a bunch of voice actor fans out there, you know these folks. But yeah, they're just a lovely group of people. And I don't know, I you know, voice acting can be such a solitary experience because we're in a padded room talking to ourselves all day. That it can be really nice to get out and be with people, and they're just a really great group. Yeah. Definitely. That was wonderful. Any game you'd like to be a part of that you haven't already? Oh God, there's there's so many. Oh God, what do I audition for all the time? Shoot, there's so many I'd love to be a part of. Now, shoot, now you're putting me in. I would love to be a part of the Last of Us, the series, like some of the Naughty Dog stuff. Shoot, man, if that comes along, please,
right,
be a part of that. Gosh, if they ever got like really in depth making Metroid games, and I'm on the fence about this because part of me never wants Metroid to be voiced, and as a voice actor, let me tell you why. Because like there's a certain amount of like solitude that I love about the Metroid games, about Samus just kind of being this badass bounty hunter on this strange alien world on her own. And I don't, there's a moodiness to it that I don't think, you necessarily need to put a voice to it. It can kind of sit in that mood. And also being a bounty hunter out on your own by yourself in deep space for a while. I don't know. Maybe you do talk to yourself a lot. Maybe Samus is nuts. But man, I love that franchise a lot. And if there was a way in which they did have people like sort of voicing it, or they expanded that world, man, that would be really fun. I'm excited for Cyberpunk to come out, and I guess I mean I'm not in it, but I'd love to be in that too. So, I don't know. So I don't know, all of them, man. I play a lot of games, and I freaking love them.
So that's something people may not know about you, is you are a big gamer.
Yeah, I love it. I've been playing games. My brothers and I, my family's a big gaming family. We play like card games and board games a lot too. And then my brothers and I got involved in a lot of video games and playing those. I just really think it's wonderful. I've always said it holds a great place in entertainment, and I'm so glad to see it being so successful and so many people loving it these days. And really getting involved in these stories. And, it's like, they're like movies, man. It's like, and better than movies, because it's like long form narratives that you're a part of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Metroid's one of the greats. Thank you, Gamerthon. It is one of the greats.
So, you guys are on it with the questions.
Right now, I'm very into strategy games right now. And so I like a lot of things. Like, I think I've mentioned this a couple of times, but Civilization, Stellaris, Crusader, and like a big history fan. A lot of those games like spark my imagination, and I really love them. And who doesn't want Sean Bean talking to you every time you get a new Civic or you expand your science research? Thank you, Sean Bean. Tell me what I should do with my cities. So I like a lot of that genre. I mean, I like them all. I used to play like more first person shooters and fighting games, but I think as I've kind of gone on, like nowadays I play a lot of strategy games. and I like some of the narrative story explorers, like like the Uncharted and Last of Us series.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, something just flashed into my head, and I can't think of it. Sorry, I'm having like a brain freeze right now.
It will come back to you. Don't worry.
I really hope it does. I feel like it was poignant, and when it comes back, it's going to be like the great friendship ender, Spirit Shock. Please, in like divulge. Have you had friendships end via Civ? Oh my God, it came back to me again. Oh, System Shock. I love the Shock games. Holy crap. System Shock 2, if they remastered System Shock 2, I would love to be in that game, a part of it. So that's actually my answer. I have to go back and retcon my own answer. Because I freaking love that game so much. And I really did enjoy the BioShock series as well as it came out. But System Shock 2 was something special. And I really like Deus Ex. As first-person shooters, I like it when they incorporate a lot of that RP element. And those were a couple that were like the first in my experience when I encountered them to do it. And I loved the first-person shooters allowing me to like kind of become like role play a little bit. And I love Deus Ex with its flexibility in how to approach a problem, in how to accomplish your goals. You could, and depending on how you spec your character, you could like, hack mechs or whatnot, or if you were super stealthy, you could find like covert ways in, or hack terminals. You could go in guns ablazing if that was just your style. Someone mentioned Assassin's Creed, and yeah, I love a lot of those games. I'm a big fan of 2, the Ezio collection. I think that's, I don't know if that a lot of people seem to like that. I don't know if that's like the default the default answer, but I really like the story behind that one. I think the first one was a great proof of concept for the game, but I think they really like landed something special when they got Ezio's storyline going, and that's really where it kind of came together for me with Assassin's Creed. I haven't played some of the latest ones, but I've heard very good things about that. Exploring in melee combat, like a God of War, maybe Nero. I'm thinking, or is that like that sort of thing?
I think so,
like one of the platformers.
Yeah.
Which that's another game I'd kind of like, I've been trying to like keep up with platforms as much as I could when I was a kid too, but like limited means and having to like pick my battles meant that I kind of missed out. I missed out on some of the cool PlayStation games that came along, like the God of War series and whatnot. I was a big fan of Zelda growing up, and I finally got off my ass and played Breath of the Wild, which I really enjoyed. But I had played a lot of those horror games. I was just going to talk about that. Resident Evil, like definitely into the Resident Evil series. I played Parasite Eve a little bit when I was a kid, which was kind of cool. But I think I stayed a little bit more, I guess, mainstream with the horror games. I've kind of picked at a bunch of different genres in it. Resident Evil was the one that I had landed on and played more consistently. I definitely specifically bought a GameCube for Resident Evil 4 so that I could play that because that game's awesome.
Controller?
The chainsaw controller? No, I didn't.
Oh man. And one other thing too, like I definitely want to dive into it, but you're also a podcaster. You've got the show, The Theater Tomorrow. Like, you mind delving into that and letting people know where they can find that? And
yeah. I'm just kind of from Spirit Shock Showdown, greatest villains. Sorry, I just had to say that was that controller was terrible. And I did see another question that popped by just before we move on to the podcast. I have played. I have started playing Fire Emblem as well, and I'm really enjoying it. It was the first I haven't played any of the Fire Emblem games until Three Houses, actually. But being a strategy game fan, I really do like the squad combat that they have in there and all the storylines. So Yeah, I was excited to start playing it, and I've been playing on the Black Eagles route because I'm a sucker for Edelgard. If you've seen any other any other of these some interviews that I've done, I'm a big fan of her. So despite it being counter to Seteth, I have to play Black Eagles.
Remember, I told you never sell your copy, because remember I showed you the prices for Fire Emblem games. They get insanely expensive and rare. I don't know why.
Yeah. But to your thought with the podcast, yeah. So on the side, I like creating content, and my friend Travis Master and I, he moved out here to LA a couple of years, a year after I did, 2 years after I did, to pursue writing out here. And I had just gotten off shooting a web series for my show, Rolling High. It's based on D&D, and I was like, I love creating, and I love to get myself in the mix of learning what it's like to try and shoot a series, which it's very hard and complicated, as I found out. And I was like, shoot, I want to make more content, but I don't want to really do like a visual series. And so I ended up, Travis and I, he had this script, and he was like, let's do this as a radio play. And I was like, because we would have direct control over it, and it would be ours, and I wouldn't have to necessarily get a cinematographer. I wouldn't have to get, a sound guy. I wouldn't have to get gaffers. So, which it's all great, and I wish I could. It takes a lot more organization. And I don't know, it was just very much appealing to me to condense the organization down to myself as a producer, an audio producer, and my friend as the writer, and like working as a 2-person team. And so we ended up making this sci-fi podcast. And I told Travis, I was like, let's make this into even a bigger thing. He wants to write a bunch of sci-fi shows. So I wanted to have an umbrella under which he could write a lot more stories that I could then produce and voice act in. And so we're like, let's call it something, crazy and old school, like the Theater of Tomorrow, and it'll be like this antiquated radio show. And a friend of mine dropped me this brilliant sound library, like 300 gigabytes worth of sound effects, and I was like, holy crap, I'm good to go. So it's been a lot of fun, me trying to learn how to audio engineer, and we've done a whole bunch of cool stories. Our first one was kind of like a Douglas Adams style Hitchhiker's Guide space caper, where this captain steals a sentient starship and hauls off across the galaxy. And that's cool. But then really cool, funny and fast-paced story. And then we did this film noir on the moon that Travis had written with his friend Mario, called Kennedy Roundhouse Moon Detective. And that one's just like, we added like little bits of crafting elements into it, and kind of tried to make it a little more moody and horror-based, all with kind of like a wry, dry sense of humor. And then we moved on to like a multi-dimensional time travel-y sort of episode. And then we did like a found footage episode of the end times. And then we did a Mad Max sort of meets He-Man season that was super cool, because we started adding music into it, like kind of like adding tracks that we would compose. And it's called Dust Runner. Tempest in the Valley, and all these different characters I've been able to play. And every time in between all of our seasons, we do little shorts a la Twilight Zone, of little like little episodes here and there of just like short sci-fi stories. It's a lot of fun, and if you get a chance, if anyone's into like looking for something to listen to, I would love for y'all to check it out, and give us a listen, and hopefully you enjoy it. And if you don't, move on to the next episode, because that's an anthology. So, but there are a lot of cool voice actors on there. I've been able to mobilize some of the community out here and get folks like my friend Sam Riegel is in a number of episodes.
Oh, you're friends with Sam?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Sam was the voice director on Home, actually.
Nice.
And he's fantastic. He's such a great guy. Yeah. So I've been able to get, folks like him and other actor friends that I know. And you can listen to it on iTunes or Libsyn, a lot of podcatchers. And you just said you put our website up there, theateroftomorrow.com. But yeah, if you go to like iTunes, or if you go, I think we should be on Google Play as well.
I believe
we should be on most podcatchers out there. Yeah. Diva Marie, is that a question as to if she's in the podcast?
Yeah, I think so.
She's not in the podcast yet. I actually but soon I will need to activate some more of the some more of my voice actor friends. And especially since we're all indoors now, I've got a captive audience. So I'm coming for you guys. Travis is also a big fan of Halloween too. So every year we've been doing a Halloween special. So if you're coasting through our podcast and you're like, why do these guys have Halloween shows on here? It's because for Travis, Halloween is like super it's like his time of year. It's his Hallmark Christmas, and so he really loves Halloween. We've riffed off of a bunch of the ideas of like 90s Halloween specials and kind of done mashups of our own show. We have a horror podcast called The Hotel that you can also find through the Theater of Tomorrow website. That's just like short monologue stories, like kind of spooky stories. I love it. I think podcasting's fun. I think creating these episodes is fun. I've learned a lot about like putting soundscapes together. Halloween is the greatest season. There you go. That's plenty of Halloween fans out there, right?
Right.
It's a good thing. Yeah, I don't know if I missed any of these questions up here. Sorry, I just wanted to go through.
No. Take your time.
Superhero or villain I'd really want to voice. God, I want to be Captain America sometimes. I don't know if I feel like I may be a little too cynical to be Captain America. I might have a bit more of a cynical sound. And not so much the all-American sound. I don't know. I don't know if that would be if I'd necessarily fit into that, or maybe like some of the I like villains though, man. Or I like but then again, in the superhero world, there's so many layers to these characters too, which is so cool. Yeah, I mean, keep your eyes out. There may be things on the horizon that I'll be able to talk about later via that question. So. And Drizzt. Yeah, that would be so cool. I would love to. That's a cool character. I would love to. I'd love to play that character at some point in time. Do I work from home often? I do. Yeah, I do a lot of stuff from home. I'll do things like I'm not. In addition to being in animation and video games, I also will. I mean, we're having sessions from home nowadays too. I've upgraded my studio to get Source Connect. Bought a new microphone and everything, just to have some options for studios. But I do a lot of work on my own for I do e-learning. I do medical narrations for simulations. I do commercials for regional folks. If you call some businesses up in Seattle, you'll probably hear my voice on hold for them. Voice actors are pretty versatile. We do a lot of things here and there, and so yeah, I'm always working from my booth. Trying to do as many jobs as I can, and help out where I can, in all industries. And I find them all to have their own challenges and fun stuff. Prepping for a voice session, yeah. I mean, it depends on the session. Generally I'll warm up. I like to warm up and get my voice going. I'm a singer, so scales, things like that, simply stretching your body because it is physical, and making sure that I'm nice and loose and ready to go. But that's kind of general actor prep, is just making sure that you're available and ready. I'll try to do my homework. If I know what's happening, if I have the benefit of having the scripts beforehand, I'm going to try to be as off book as I can. Especially for PCAP, you have to be off book. But I like to do my homework, reading source material, reading associated material, and just, you know, making sure that I get as much prep in as I can, so that when I'm there, I'm ready to go. If I have questions, they're at the ready. I have my choices already made. If I have the script, I know what I'm doing. If I have, like, if it's animation, if it's stuff like that, where I'm like, let's I want to be open to improving in the moment. But if there's certain things, if I have certain ideas on things that might be kind of cool to try out, I'll jot them down the margins, and just have those run in the back of my head. You know, so yeah, it depends on the job, but there's a lot of prep. Let's see, born on Halloween.
So I see Lehua and Gamer Thumb.
Loki.
So
Oh my God,
Lehua.
Thank you, Lehua. Jeez.
And
Tom Hiddleston's the only Loki for me, though. God damn.
And Gamer Thumb says he could see you as Kyle Rayner as Green Lantern.
Yeah. I can't sneak peeks on roles. I wish I could. I can't at the moment. Yeah. For obvious reasons. But yeah, man, that would be fun. Has it been difficult to dub anime in this environment? That's an interesting question. I actually, it is difficult. I've not had sessions yet, and I think it's just one of those things where, honestly, as voice actors, we're not expected to be engineers, and nor do I necessarily want to be an engineer, because there are many people out there who are engineers and they do it extremely well, and that is their art, that is their passion, and that's what they do. I have a working knowledge of how to do it, but I'm by no means an engineer. Dubbing's difficult to do, especially remote. There's you know, you're dealing with things like, in a remote session, you're always dealing with latency, but then you're having to deal with being able to run video and capture audio and engineer yourself at the same time, which may mean you need to be riding your mic levels depending on what you're doing. And it's just a lot of work. And I can't wait to get back to the studios, because that's where we succeed best. Yeah. And hopefully, you know, just knocking on wood, that this all blows over and we can get back to work in those environments. Because I think that the quality of the product is not that, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say whether there'll be a dip or whether it'll just be a more laborious process. And I know that a lot of the houses that handle dubs are working very hard to find viable solutions, because no one wants to put out a crappy product. You know, we want to put out a really good product. We want to put out the best performance that we can, and so hopefully, you know, hopefully we can arrive at something that's workable without compromising quality, because I don't want to go in there and do a job on a show that everyone's really loving and digging, and then because we're having like technical difficulties, for that to get in the way of the fans' enjoyment. I'm hoping we can weather this time so we can get back on track to really bring you the quality that everyone is expecting. You know, and so that we can really make it work. So, you know, yeah. In the Legend of Vox Machina. Oh, thank you. Your mouth to Mercer's ears. I would love to be. I'd love to be in that show. Matt is a great guy. All of them are great folks. I had the great fortune of working with Laura Bailey and Matt Mercer on various things, and of course Sam, and they're great people, and they do such a good job with Critical Role and with their characters. And yeah, I'd love to be part of that crew one day. So, you know, just hoping that I can join them. We'll see if there's an opportunity. I'll keep on knocking on their doors and be like, hi, right here. Yeah, it has been tough for the anime VAs. I'm hoping we go through this. Favorite bad movie or game? Bad movie. Oh, geez. What's my favorite bad movie? I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think. something that's like really just enjoyably horrible. God, I do making a good thing. If anyone watches Mystery Science Theater 3000, I love watching that show because I love kind of being there with them making fun of bad movies. There's a movie that I particularly, an episode of that I particularly remember, where they were watching Manos Hands of Fate. And that movie is trippy and weird and awful. and that's one of my favorites. I would stay up with my friends. We would like, whenever we'd like, do like whatever, like sleepovers or just hang out at night. We were in like high school and whatnot, and we'd stay up and play video games and watch Mystery Science Theater 3000. And Manos Hands of Fate is one that stands out. God, there was some like adventure-y movie. I can't remember the name of it now. Another MST3K. Surf Nazis Must Die is also pretty awful and pretty wonderful at the same time. Manos, yeah, it's real. You better believe it is. That crap is for real.
They're really active with the questions today, aren't they?
I was working, so I had the great fortune to have Nolan North was on Home Adventures with Tip and O for the entire time. It was, and that was one of my first big VO jobs that I landed in, and I was tripping out because I was like, not only was it one of my first big jobs, like period. I think my first big job. I had no credit before that. They had to like talk to the producers to be like, this guy's cool, he'll be fine. And luckily, everyone was like, yeah, let's take a chance on this guy. So Nolan was in that cast, so I got to work with him for the entire 3 years. And I worked with people like Gray Griffin and Kevin Michael Richardson and Tom Kenny, and like just tons of top-notch folks on that show. And I was losing my mind every single day because I got to watch these guys and girls like freaking work it. And it really made me step up my game a lot. And it's just amazing being in the room with those seasoned pros. They know exactly what they're doing. They're effortlessly slipping in and out of voices. They're giving people options. They're like every take is like great. And you're just like, I gotta be that good. Shoot.
So to be respectful of your time, because I'm not sure how much more time we have. I do have 2 questions, but and I know they have one other. Well, how much more time do we have with you? I know we went a little over.
We got about another 10 minutes here, if that's cool.
Cool. So Desiree, your question, I'm going to save that last because I think we could close on that. But I want to ask you, Mark, you mentioned music earlier. So you're a singer. So let's talk about that. Yeah,
sure.
So how'd you get into singing? How'd you get into singing?
So I was always kind of like I was a very loud child. And I was at when was the first voice lesson I took? My brothers did a bunch of piano recitals, and I was a very loud child, and I was one of those kids that I would do whatever my brothers told me to. And there was this one woman who was there who was like, they were like, have you ever she asked my mom, she was like, you ever thought about giving him like voice lessons? And my mom was like, oh no, he doesn't sing, he doesn't act, he doesn't do that. And and he was also too, I probably can't do as many things in character. Sorry, just because I got in trouble for that at one point in time.
No. I understand.
Oh, okay, cool. But anyway, so they were telling me they were like, she was like, does he ever do that? And my mom was like, no, he doesn't. And so then she was like, well, why not? Let's give it a try. And I started doing voice lessons with this woman, Barbara Gill, and out in California. And she initially taught me like my British dialect. And so I was learning a British dialect as like a 10-year-old. And after that, I started really like loving it. And I started taking singing lessons, and my parents were like, "Oh, you're actually, you know," we found out. I was like, "I'm not bad at this," and they were like, "Yeah, you're not bad at this." And so I started singing a lot more. I started singing more classical material, like arias, Italian arias, and art songs, and all that sort of stuff. Being classically trained, and from there, I found out that I really had a love for musical theater. I did a bunch of musicals when I was growing up, and then I went to the University of Michigan and got my BFA in musical theater from that school. And I kind of thought that I was going to end up in musicals. I was living in New York City for a while, and I've done a lot of musicals out off Broadway, down in Orlando, and with Disney and a bunch, and being out here in LA too. And that's just been, I love music, and I think there's something really cool about it. I love the abstraction of theater, and I love the even further abstraction of like singing. I know musicals can sometimes be the butt of jokes for being a bit ridiculous, but to me, there's also, when you find that reason, that need to have to sing something, and that passion, like music is something that carries with it a great amount of emotion. And it's also just fun to sing. I love it. I love just kind of like, I just love the feeling of it. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into it, and it's served me pretty well with a bunch of jobs that I've done, and it also serves me well in the voice acting community. Yeah, and there are a lot of questions popping up about music. I actually went to my first year in college at Boulder, was as an opera major, and I realized I didn't necessarily want to be in opera. I think that I'd always wanted to be an actor, anyways, and not that opera isn't acting as well. I just really liked I like the mix of it more, and I like having that. I just kind of liked where musicals and especially plays sat. I like opera, and I like, I mean, Pavarotti, I mean, I don't know if I can necessarily speak to his technique, because like I don't think I'm that qualified. He sounds good to me. I think that the operatic voices are, they're beautiful and powerful, and it's crazy what they can physically do. But I also think there's like a lot of merit to like folk singers and other forms of singing where it doesn't necessarily come from that robust technically perfect place, but it comes more from like the heart, or people who are able to kind of manipulate their voice to get all sorts of sounds, and it's true to them, and I find that to be really beautiful. Yeah. Which Disney movie had the best music? That's a hard one. That's difficult. That's really hard. Shoot. I mean, I've got a soft spot for Aladdin, but that's just because I really liked that movie when I was growing up. I had it like memorized, and like I seriously had like Aladdin memorized as a child. I'm sure a lot of us did.
How about your I guess one of my last questions is, how was your trip out here in Hawaii?
Oh my God, man. It was so good. It was so good. I love Hawaii. I've had a number of different experiences kind of like orbiting around Hawaii. I've been there a few times. My friend got married out there, and I was out there for a while. And we went out there with my family. I went to Maui. I went to Kauai when my friend got married. I've been scuba diving a lot out in Maui, and Maui and Kauai, and it's just beautiful reefs out there. I find the culture to be really wonderful and interesting. The history that surrounds those islands as well, and all of the different cultures and how they mix together. I had a friend when I was working at Disney who was from the islands, and she was a big influence on kind of introducing me to Hawaiian culture, and introducing me to a lot of music, traditional music, You know, like the different, she was Hawaiian as well, and she, you know, so she would like introduce me to like kind of the dances and stuff, and she had a lot of friends who were from there who would sing as well, and like it was like kind of that tight knit community. I got a lot of that sense with her, and she would like we would like get together and make poke, and and she was like, I'm gonna make some poi for you today, and yeah, you kind of like, and then and it was cool because all the music too was like a lot of traditional songs, but also a lot of like the reggae songs, and more the kind of like modern island music, and I just think it's such an interesting and diverse place, and I've got a lot of respect for the folks that, you know, that is their home, and just, you know, what that means to them. And so I don't know, I always love visiting there. I'm glad that I can visit. I'm glad that I can, you know, be welcomed in, and hopefully be respectful of, you know, all the culture that's out there, and just being able to enjoy it and support it as much as I can. So yeah, I really love it. Poi.
So that's one of the things, like, you know, when you guys that came out here, you know, a couple of months ago, one of the things that Lehu and I wanted to do, we were like, we just want them to have a good time. We're not like the type of guest that's going to be like overbearing or anything. So we were like, have fun, dude. Here's a key. You remember? It was like,
oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, you guys were. I mean, it was great seeing you. I was kind of like, we were like, we should bring them along on hikes, everything. We're sorry that we couldn't go on more hikes with you guys and whatnot. But we also like getting out and around the island. And I know like sometimes when people come to like visit, even when they come to visit here, I'm like, dude, I gotta work. I gotta stay in. I'm gonna go to like the coffee shop downstairs. And people are meanwhile like, let's go to the Getty, let's go to Venice. And I'm like, you don't understand. There's like 2 hours of traffic to get to Venice.
But yeah, man, like anytime you want to come back out here, man, you got a key, you got a place to stay. You already know.
Awesome.
I know the last question, we'll end it out with Desiree's or Denomi's last question, which was, is there any advice you would give to anyone who's interested in getting into the voice acting industry?
Yeah, absolutely. This question, you know, comes up a lot, and there are a couple of really good resources out there. I always point people to this resource because I think it's pretty wonderful. A voice actor by the name of D. Bradley Baker made a website called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. And if you don't know D from his work, look him up, and bag of tips that you know. You'll love him. He's fantastic. But he got asked that question a lot, and so he put together a website that kind of answers a lot of the. It's like a FAQ for becoming a voice actor. And then the other advice that I'd give is also like, it is acting, and I always say this as well. It's acting. So if you're into theater, if you're into making movies, if you're into telling stories, if you're paying attention to any of those things, that's all a part of voice acting. And so developing your skills like that by taking acting classes, like I would advocate that as a very good start, because it is indeed acting, and there is a technical element to it because we're behind a microphone, and it's kind of it's a unique sort of space. But at the core, you're playing characters, you're in scenes and situations, you're trying to bring reality to these fantastical, sometimes crazy situations, or these very real personal moments that are based around relationships and real people who want or need things in their life, and you want to be able to communicate that openly and honestly. And so I think, you know, getting in touch with what it means to be an actor and to really approach character work, I think that is going to set you down a solid path. The technical stuff is its own hurdle, and there are ways in which you can deal with and get used to that, and that I would say it is just practice. It is diving in and finding ways to do it. You don't have to start by investing tens of thousands of dollars into this. You can incrementally, you can do it. You can find your ways into it, and build upon it. And if you indeed like it, if it speaks to you and you really find it fulfilling, you will find ways to get over those technical hurdles. But I think the important thing is in the performance, and I think that focusing on that is a great place to start. And finding the passion for that. The technical stuff, it is important, and it is an acquired skill as well. But being an actor, I'm a little biased towards the other stuff.
All right,
but they're great. There are great resources out there too, for the technical stuff. There's the East West Auto Body Shop, EWABS, and they talk a lot of tech. So if you're a gearhead and that speaks to you as well, then you might want to listen to some of their podcast. VO Buzz Weekly, another fantastic podcast. And YouTube show by Chuck Duran and Stacey Oswald, and they're very much in a part of this voiceover industry out here. And start listening to that podcast. They're talking to all the industry people. They're talking to agents. They're talking to casting people. They're talking to directors. They're talking to actors. The whole experience of this business is captured in that, and you get to know who these people are. You get to know what they experience. It's like a chat like this, and they're talking all about VO, and it can give you a really good window into the community and into what it takes. So yeah.
Okay. And I lied. I have one final question for you, sir. Did you have fun?
Fire away. I had a lot of fun, man. Always do. This is fantastic. Thanks for having me on, and thanks everybody for all your wonderful questions. I hope that I got to answer everything that was in there. I really appreciate you guys coming on and asking questions, and it's been really fun to connect with all you. So
yeah. And where can people find you on social media? Where are you at? Where are you running the show at?
At MP Whitten on Twitter, at M Whitten on Instagram, and of course Tomorrow Theater at Tomorrow Theater on Twitter as well. But find us on iTunes. That's a good way to find us. And if you can leave us a rate and a review if you like our show, if you like what we're putting out for you, then we appreciate that as well. But other than that, enjoy the show, enjoy the stories.
Cool. And with that being said, people, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Kasanova Podcast. And if you did, make sure you hit the like button on your way out. If you're watching it on YouTube, if you're listening to it, leave a rating and a review. And you can catch this episode and many others available on, and I'm going to read it off because it's right below me, and it's so much easier for me to do it. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and also video simulcasted. It's everywhere. They're all right there on YouTube as well as Twitch. And if you enjoy what you see here, the podcast, the streams, and everything more, you want to have some behind the scenes or have more input into the show, we've got patreon.com/Mikhail Kasanova. Whatever you guys invest into us here at the channel, we reinvest into the channel to bring you better and higher quality content. And with that being said, this is Mikhail Kasanova. My good friend Mark Whitten. We are signing out. All of his social media links are down in the description below, so make sure you go check them out. And with that being said, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good one.
See you later.